The crystal chandelier shimmered above the grand ballroom, casting golden light over the guests. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air until Daniel's voice cut through it all like a blade. "Take off that coat, Lily," he said coldly. His tone wasn't a request, it was a command. The room F. Lily froze. Her hands clutched her belly instinctively, protecting the small life growing inside her. "Daniel, please," she whispered, her voice trembling. The weight of dozens of stares pressed against her like knives. Her husband, tall and immaculate in his black suit, looked at her with cant. "You think you can hide something from me?" he snapped, stepping closer. "You think you can fool everyone here with your innocent act?" Guests exchanged glances, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. At the corner of the hall, Sophie, Daniel's lover, sipped champagne, her lips curving into a cruel, satisfied smile. Lily's heart raced. Her pregnancy made every breath feel heavier. The silk coat Daniel demanded her to remove wasn't hiding anything, only her shaking body and the quiet shame of being humiliated. "Daniel, I'm begging you," she said softly. He laughed bitterly, turning toward the crowd. "Do you hear that? She's always pretending to be fragile. That's what she's good at, pretending." A few people chuckled awkwardly. Others looked away. Sophie leaned closer to one of the guests and whispered, loud enough for Lily to hear, "Maybe she's not even pregnant. Maybe she's been lying all along." Lily felt her knees weaken, her vision blurred with tears. "That's not true," she murmured, clutching her belly tighter. But Daniel didn't stop. "Then prove it," he barked. "Show everyone you're not hiding anything under that coat." Gasps rippled across the room. Even the band stopped playing. Lily's face turned pale as snow. For a second, she thought she might faint. "Daniel, please. This isn't right," an older guest muttered, trying to diffuse the tension. Daniel glared at him, and the man stepped back, defeated. Lily's trembling fingers reached for the buttons of her coat. The air felt icy against her skin despite the warm lights. Each second stretched into eternity. Her breath caught as she looked at Daniel, her husband, her tormentor, and then at Sophie, whose eyes gleamed with triumph. When the final button came undone, a deep silence swept the hall. Her white maternity dress shimmered faintly beneath the lights, and a small patch of blood from earlier discomfort stained the fabric near her waist. Someone gasped, someone whispered, "She's bleeding." Daniel's smirk vanished for a split second, but it was too late. The crowd's murmurs turned into disgust toward him. Lily's body swayed. Her hand reached out, grasping nothing but air, and then she collapsed. The champagne glass fell from Sophie's hand and shattered on the marble floor as Lily's body hit the ground. And just before the lights dimmed, Lily heard Daniel's voice, cold, distant, and merciless, say, "You always ruin everything." The hospital room smelled of disinfectant and loneliness. Machines beeped softly beside Lily's bed, each sound reminding her that she was still alive, but barely. The bright light above her felt too white, too harsh, like the eyes that had stared at her during that nightmare of a party. Her hands instinctively went to her belly. The baby still moved faintly. Relief flooded through her, mixed with fear. She turned her head and saw the empty chair beside her. Daniel wasn't there. He hadn't even called. Instead, a nurse handed her a phone earlier with a message. It was from Sophie. "Daniel's with me tonight. You should rest, sweetheart. Stress isn't good for the baby." The words stabbed deeper than any knife could. Lily's heart ached in silence. Once, Daniel had been her whole world, a man who promised safety and forever. 3 years ago, she was a rising fashion designer, running her small boutique with passion and hope. He had walked in one rainy afternoon, pretending to admire the dresses but really looking at her. He said she had hands made of light. She laughed back then, thinking it was romantic. She didn't know those same hands would one day tremble from fear of him. Now she was 28, pregnant, and alone in a hospital bed while the man who vowed to protect her lay in another woman's arms. The betrayal burned her chest with every breath. She closed her eyes, remembering the early days, the picnics, the laughter, the soft way he used to tuck her hair behind her ear. Where had that Daniel gone? Or had he never really existed? A soft knock broke her thoughts. The nurse walked in and adjusted the IV. "You need rest," she said gently. "Your blood pressure is unstable, and you should avoid stress." "Stress?" Lily whispered bitterly. "How can I avoid it when the father of my child is destroying me?" The nurse didn't answer, only patted her hand kindly before leaving. The door closed, and silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Lily turned to the window. The city lights blurred through her tears. She wondered how long people at the party would remember what happened. Maybe they'd gossip for a week, then forget. But she would never forget. That humiliation had burned into her soul. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, from Daniel this time. "Stop embarrassing me. Stay at the hospital until I decide what to do with you." She bit her lip to stop herself from crying out. The baby kicked weakly, as if feeling her pain. Lily whispered softly, "Don't worry, little one, Mommy's here." For the first time, something shifted inside her. Not just sorrow, but a faint spark of defiance. She couldn't go back to that house. Not after what he did. Not after Sophie's smirk. She didn't know how, but she would leave. She had to protect her child, even if it meant walking away from everything. Her pulse steadied as she stared at the hospital ceiling. Somewhere deep down, a quiet voice whispered that this was not the end. It was the moment she began to rise from the ashes of her humiliation. Daniel stood before the floor-to-ceiling mirror in his penthouse, adjusting the cuffs of his white shirt. The morning sun poured through the glass, but his reflection looked cold, almost lifeless. He had barely slept. The video from last night's party kept replaying in his mind. The moment Lily collapsed, the gasps, the whispers. But he wasn't thinking about her pain. He was thinking about his reputation. He slammed his fist against the counter. "She made me look like a fool," he muttered. In his world, appearance was everything. The successful businessman, the perfect husband, the charming man who could control any room. But last night, all that cracked the moment Lily fell. People had seen him lose his temper. Investors had seen weakness. Sophie entered the room, barefoot, wearing his shirt. "You're still angry?" she teased, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Daniel didn't move. "You don't understand. She humiliated me." Sophie smirked. "No, darling, you exposed her. Everyone saw she's not fit to be your wife. You did what had to be done." Her words soothed his pride like poison disguised as honey. He turned, looking at her flawless face. "You think they'll believe I did the right thing?" "Of course," she said sweetly. "You're Daniel Moore. You own half the car showrooms in this city. People admire you. They'll side with you, as long as you stay confident." Daniel nodded slowly. Confidence. That's what he needed. He grabbed his suit jacket and walked toward the living room where a table full of business reports waited. But a single photo on the sideboard caught his eye. Him and Lily on their wedding day. She was smiling, radiant, trusting. He picked up the frame, staring at it for a long time before setting it down face first. "That part of my life is over," he said flatly. Sophie watched him, pretending to be affectionate but hiding her own agenda. She didn't care about Lily or Daniel's marriage. What she cared about was money, his company, his assets, his power. And now that Lily was broken and out of the picture, Sophie saw an open door. "By the way," she said lightly, "I looked over the company papers. You're still sharing legal ownership with your wife. That's risky. Maybe you should fix that soon." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I'll handle it." Sophie's lips curved into a smile. "Good. Because people like her don't deserve what men like you built." For a brief moment, Daniel hesitated. A faint memory of Lily's trembling voice echoed in his head. "Daniel, please. Not here." He pushed it away. Guilt was weakness, and weakness destroyed powerful men. He walked out onto the balcony, overlooking the city that once admired him. The air smelled of ambition and deceit. Down below, reporters were already whispering about the Moore scandal. He would silence them, he told himself. He always did. He pulled out his phone and typed a short message to his lawyer. "Prepare the documents. I want full control." As he pressed send, Sophie's reflection appeared behind him in the glass, smiling darkly. Neither of them knew that the woman they had humiliated wasn't gone. She was gathering the strength to return, and this time she wouldn't come back alone. The morning after the scandalous party, Sophie sat at a cafe terrace downtown, sunlight glinting off her oversized sunglasses. To anyone watching, she looked like an innocent young woman enjoying her coffee. But behind those dark lenses, her eyes danced with victory. The chaos she'd helped create was still trending online. Photos of Lily's collapse had spread across social media, and people whispered that Daniel's wife had lost her mind, exactly as Sophie planned. She scrolled through her phone, reading comments. Poor Daniel, married to such a dramatic woman. Another read, that mistress looks so elegant, he deserves better. Sophie smiled. Yes, she whispered to herself, he does deserve better. Me. Her phone buzzed. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. She answered, her tone dripping with sweetness. Good morning, handsome. How's my favorite man? Daniel sounded tired, irritable. I have reporters calling non-stop. The investors want answers. I need to fix this fast. You will, Sophie said calmly, stirring her coffee. Let me help. We just have to make her look unstable. People already believe she's fragile. If you frame it right, she'll seem delusional, even dangerous. Daniel hesitated. She's pregnant, Sophie. That's risky. Sophie rolled her eyes. You can't let guilt slow you down. If she loses the baby, it'll only make people pity you more. There was a pause on the line. Sophie leaned back, satisfied. Every word she spoke pushed Daniel deeper into her web. She knew his pride better than anyone, knew how to manipulate it, stroke it, and feed it. Soon, he'd be completely under her control. After hanging up, she opened her compact mirror, checking her reflection. Perfect, she murmured. Always perfect. Her friend Mia arrived, slipping into the seat across from her. Sophie, I saw the video last night. You really went through with it? Sophie laughed lightly. Oh, come on. I didn't make him humiliate her. I just gave him a little push. Mia frowned. She's pregnant, Sophie. That's cruel. Sophie shrugged. Cruel? No. Strategic. You think love gets you anywhere in this world? Power does. Daniel has it, and soon so will I. She sipped her coffee as if talking about weather. Besides, that woman was boring. Always in oversized sweaters, quiet, obedient. She thought being kind made her strong, pathetic. Mia looked uncomfortable. What if she comes back? Sophie's lips curved into a cold smile. Then I'll crush her again? Only this time, no one will believe her. She stood up, tossed a few bills onto the table, and slipped on her designer coat. The cafe door swung shut behind her as she walked toward Daniel's office. She already pictured it, her sitting in Lily's place, her name beside Daniel's on the company documents. Everything was falling into place. But as Sophie crossed the street, she didn't notice the man sitting in a nearby car, quietly taking photos. His camera clicked once, twice, capturing her every move. That man would soon uncover the truth Sophie thought she'd buried forever, and her perfect mask was about to crack. The grand ballroom smelled of champagne and perfume, but beneath the glittering chandeliers, a storm was brewing. That night, Daniel Moore's company was hosting a charity gala, an event meant to celebrate success and generosity. The city's most influential people were there, smiling, networking, raising their glasses. They didn't know the evening would end in scandal and shame. Lily stood near the back, her hands gently cradling her baby bump. The doctor had told her to rest, but Daniel insisted she attend. People need to see we're fine, he said that afternoon, his tone more like an order than a request. She obeyed, hoping for peace. Deep down, she still wanted to believe he could change. As she arrived, every pair of eyes followed her. Some whispered. Some smiled falsely. Sophie, in a sleek red dress, was the center of attention, laughing by Daniel's side. Lily felt her heart tighten at the sight. Her husband didn't even glance her way. Mrs. Moore, someone said behind her, a woman from the board of Daniel's company. You look better than I expected. The tone dripped with pity disguised as politeness. Lily forced a small smile and moved away, her stomach twisting. The band began to play, and the host called for silence. Daniel took the stage with Sophie standing proudly beside him. Tonight, he announced, we celebrate not just success, but truth and transparency. His words hung heavy with irony. Sophie clapped, her eyes flicking toward Lily like knives. Then Daniel's voice grew sharper. There's something personal I need to address, he said. The guests murmured, curious. Lily's heart sank. She sensed danger but couldn't move. Daniel turned toward her. My dear wife has been keeping secrets, he said loudly. People think she's fragile, pure, but the truth is she's been lying, to me and to all of you. Gasps echoed through the hall. Lily shook her head in disbelief. Daniel, please, stop this. He stepped down from the stage, walking toward her. Tell them, Lily. Tell them how you trapped me with a fake pregnancy. I didn't. Her voice broke. I'm really pregnant, Daniel. He laughed, cruel and loud. Then prove it. Take off your coat. Her breath caught. People whispered, phones lifted to record. Don't make me do this, she begged. Sophie's voice floated from the crowd, smooth and venomous. If she's innocent, she shouldn't be afraid. The room fell silent again. All Lily could hear was her heartbeat and the faint music still playing in the background. Her trembling hands unbuttoned the coat. She stood there, the lights too bright, the silence too heavy. The bloodstain on her dress was faint but visible. The crowd gasped. Someone cried out, "She's bleeding." Daniel froze for a second, shock flashing in his eyes before pride took over. "Drama," he muttered. "She's faking it." Then Lily's vision dimmed. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed. The hall erupted in chaos, people rushing, shouting, filming. As she fell, her last sight was Sophie's smiling face beside Daniel. That smile burned into her memory, the moment she realized love had turned into her deepest humiliation. The beeping of machines filled the hospital room, steady yet haunting. Lily woke to a blur of white walls and the smell of antiseptic. Her body ached, her throat dry. She tried to sit up, but a sharp pain shot through her abdomen, forcing her back down. Panic surged. Her hands flew to her belly. "The baby. Don't move too fast," a nurse said softly, adjusting the IV line. "You're safe now, but you lost a lot of blood. The doctor will explain soon." Safe. The word echoed emptily in her mind. How could she be safe when the father of her child had just destroyed her in front of hundreds of people? Tears welled in her eyes, sliding silently down her cheeks. She turned away, ashamed even though she'd done nothing wrong. The nurse hesitated before speaking again. "Your husband was here earlier," she said carefully. "He left." "Left?" Lily whispered. Her voice was barely audible. "He left before I woke up?" The nurse looked uncomfortable. "He said he had business to take care of." Lily's chest tightened. Her breathing grew shallow. She stared at the ceiling, trying not to break, but the pain, emotional and physical, was unbearable. Moments later, the doctor entered. His eyes were kind but heavy. "Mrs. Moore," he began gently, "your baby is still alive, but the heartbeat is weak. The stress and the fall caused complications. We'll do everything we can, but you must rest. Completely." His words cut like glass. Lily covered her face with her hands. "Please, save my baby. He's all I have left." The doctor nodded, squeezing her shoulder. "We'll try our best." When he left, silence returned, thick, suffocating silence. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. Trembling, she picked it up. A message from Daniel flashed across the screen. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Stay in the hospital until I decide what happens next." Her vision blurred. Another message arrived right after, from Sophie. "Daniel's with me tonight. He said you'll be fine. Try not to make things worse." Lily's hand shook so hard the phone slipped from her grasp and clattered to the floor. She curled up on the bed, sobbing quietly, her tears soaking the pillow. She didn't want the nurses to hear. She didn't want anyone to see her break. Hours passed. The lights dimmed. Through the hospital window, the city glowed, indifferent to her pain. She thought of her boutique, her designs gathering dust. She thought of the woman she used to be, creative, confident, alive. That woman was gone. All that remained was this fragile body and a flicker of life inside her. Then, from somewhere deep within, a whisper of strength stirred. Maybe she had lost everything, her dignity, her marriage, her peace, but she still had her child. As long as that tiny heartbeat continued, she couldn't give up. She wiped her tears, whispering to the silence, "You and me, little one. Just you and me." Outside her room, a tall figure watched through the glass window, someone who would soon change her fate forever. But Lily didn't know yet that hope was standing just beyond the door, waiting to find her. The night was quiet, except for the faint hum of hospital lights. Lily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning like a broken record. The images from the party wouldn't leave her. The laughter, the gasps, the cruel smirk on Sophie's face, Daniel's cold eyes. Every detail replayed like punishment. She turned slightly, wincing at the pain in her abdomen. Her hand rested over her stomach, feeling the weak rhythm beneath. The doctor's words echoed, "The baby's heartbeat is fragile." That fragile heartbeat was the only thing keeping her alive. Outside the window, rain began to fall, tapping gently against the glass. It brought her back to the first day she met Daniel. It had been raining then too. She remembered standing under a broken umbrella in front of her boutique, trying to fix a leaky display window. Daniel had pulled up in his sleek black car, offering to help. He was charming, confident, with that smile that could melt ice. "Let me," he had said, rolling up his sleeves as if he wasn't the kind of man who paid others to do his dirty work. By the time they finished, they were both drenched, laughing like children. He bought a dress that day, one she designed, and said, "This will be the first of many things we build together." She believed him. He brought her flowers, sent her notes, made her feel seen. Her friends called him perfect. And when he asked her to marry him under the city lights, she thought love could conquer anything. But love didn't protect her from humiliation. Love didn't stop him from destroying her in front of the world. A knock on the door broke her thoughts. The nurse stepped in, carrying a tray. "You should eat something, Mrs. Moore," she said softly. Lily forced a faint smile. "Thank you, but I'm not hungry." The nurse hesitated. "You need strength, for both of you." She pointed gently to Lily's stomach, then left. When the door closed, Lily reached for her phone. No messages, no calls, not even from her mother, who lived in another city. Daniel must have told everyone to stay away. Isolation was his favorite weapon. She opened her photo gallery, pictures of her boutique, her sketches, the day she found out she was pregnant. Daniel had cried that day. "A baby," he said, holding her face in his hands. "Our family." Now those same hands had shoved her into despair. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you change?" She thought of calling him, begging for kindness, but pride held her back. If she reached out, he'd only hurt her more. She pressed her hand to her belly again. "We'll survive this," she whispered. "I promise you, we'll survive." The rain outside grew heavier, like the sky weeping for her. But deep within that storm, something began to shift, a faint, flickering spark of defiance. She didn't know when or how, but one day she would make Daniel see what he had done. One day, he would regret everything. And that night, as thunder rolled across the sky, Lily vowed that this heartbreak would be the fire that forged her strength. Morning sunlight crept into the hospital room, painting soft lines across Lily's pale face. Her eyelids fluttered open as the door clicked. A man in a white coat stepped inside, holding a clipboard and a calm smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Moore. I'm Dr. Ethan Hayes," he said, his voice low and warm. "How are you feeling today?" Lily blinked, trying to sit up. "I've been better," she whispered, forcing a weak smile. Ethan adjusted her pillows, his movements gentle. "I saw your chart," he said carefully. "You've been through a lot. The baby's condition is delicate but still stable. That's a good sign." She nodded, her fingers gripping the blanket. I don't want to lose him. He's all I have left." Ethan looked at her for a moment, noticing the tremor in her hands, the bruises on her wrists. Small, almost hidden. He didn't ask how they got there. He'd seen enough broken stories to recognize one. "You need rest," he said softly. "But rest doesn't just mean lying still. It means protecting yourself from whatever or whoever is hurting you." Lily glanced away, embarrassed. "You don't understand." Ethan didn't push. "Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us are the ones who wound us the most." His words hung in the air, heavy and true. For the first time in weeks, someone wasn't judging her or blaming her. Someone simply saw her. He took a seat beside the bed. "You used to design clothes, didn't you?" Her eyes widened. "How do you know?" He smiled faintly. "Years ago, I bought one of your scarves at a charity event. It was beautiful, unique. I never forgot the name stitched on the tag, Lillian Designs." Lily's lips trembled. That name used to mean something, before Daniel turned it into ashes. "I closed the shop," she murmured. "Daniel said I didn't need to work anymore. That being his wife was enough." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "And was it?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No. It felt like disappearing a little more each day." He nodded. "Then maybe it's time to stop disappearing." For the first time, her chest loosened a little. His calmness made her feel safe, almost human again. "You make it sound so easy," she said quietly. "It's not," he admitted, "but healing never is." He stood, writing something on her chart. "You're stronger than you think, Lily. When you're ready, I'll help you find a way out of this. No one deserves to live in fear." She watched him leave, her heart beating a little steadier. His words replayed in her mind long after he was gone. Outside, Ethan paused in the hallway, his expression darkening as he reviewed her file. The bruises, the stress, the complications, it all pointed to neglect, maybe even abuse. He made a silent promise to himself. He would protect her, no matter what it took. And inside that quiet hospital room, Lily closed her eyes, unaware that the man who had just walked into her life would soon become her shield, her strength, and the reason she would rise again. The next evening, Daniel sat in his sleek office, city lights flickering outside the glass walls. Papers were scattered across his mahogany desk, contracts, balance sheets, pending deals, but none of it could calm the storm inside his head. The scandal from the party had begun to affect his company. Investors were calling, some threatened to withdraw, others demanded explanations. He loosened his tie, pacing back and forth. "She ruined everything," he muttered. "That pathetic act, the crying, the blood, now people think I'm the villain." From the doorway, Sophie's soft voice drifted in. "You are the victim, Daniel. Don't let them twist the story." She entered gracefully, her red dress flowing like firelight. She set 2 glasses of whiskey on the desk. "You've built everything from nothing. You can't let one weak woman destroy it." Daniel downed the drink in one gulp. "It's not just the scandal," he said, slamming the glass down. "Half of this company is still legally in Lily's name. Her father invested the initial capital. Without her signature, I can't move certain assets. If she decides to turn against me—" Sophie smiled, her lips curling in satisfaction. "Then we make sure she can't." Daniel looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Sophie circled behind him, resting her hands on his shoulders. "She's in the hospital, fragile, emotional. We could have her sign a few documents, tell her it's for medical insurance or something. She trusts you enough to sign without reading. Once that's done, everything is yours. She'll have nothing left to take." He hesitated. "That's cruel." Sophie leaned in, whispering. "Cruel? No, Daniel. It's business. She had her chance to stand beside you, and she failed. You deserve control." Her words wrapped around him like silk, smooth and deadly. Daniel exhaled, the tension fading from his jaw. "All right, I'll do it." Sophie smiled triumphantly. "Good. I'll prepare the papers. You just need to show up looking remorseful. She'll sign anything you put in front of her." She kissed him on the cheek and walked toward the door, her heels clicking like a countdown. When she was gone, Daniel sat alone, staring at the city. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that he was crossing a line he could never return from. But he silenced it with another drink. Meanwhile, across the street, in a dark sedan, a man watched through binoculars. It was Ethan. He had followed Daniel after leaving the hospital. His instincts told him something wasn't right. He saw Sophie leaving the building, phone pressed to her ear, her face glowing with satisfaction. Ethan took photos quietly, documenting everything. Back in the office, Daniel drafted a text to Lily. "We need to talk. I'm sorry for everything. Please trust me. I'll come by tomorrow." He stared at the message for a long moment before hitting send. What he didn't know was that the trap he was setting for Lily was about to become his own downfall. And the first spark of his destruction had already been lit. The next morning, the hospital was quiet except for the faint hum of machines and footsteps echoing in the hallway. Lily sat by the window, wrapped in a thin blanket, staring at the gray sky. She hadn't slept all night. The messages from Daniel and Sophie still burned in her mind, looping endlessly. Then, out of nowhere, her phone buzzed again. "Daniel, I'm coming by today. We need to talk. Please trust me this time." Her heart trembled. She didn't know whether to feel hope or dread. Part of her still wanted to believe in the man she had once loved, the one who promised her a family, who kissed her belly and whispered dreams about their future. Maybe, she thought, maybe he finally regretted what he did. When the door opened hours later, Daniel stepped in, holding a bouquet of white lilies. The sight of him made her pulse quicken. He looked handsome as ever, his face carefully composed into an expression of guilt. "Lily," he said softly, approaching her bed. "You look pale. I'm sorry for everything. I lost control that night. I shouldn't have said those things." She stared at him, unsure. "You humiliated me, Daniel. You made me feel worthless." He lowered his head, pretending to be ashamed. "I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. I want us to start over, for the baby." The mention of the baby weakened her. She turned away, tears forming. "The baby is still weak," she whispered. Daniel placed the flowers on her table, pulling a folder from his briefcase. "I spoke to my lawyer," he continued carefully. "There are some forms for insurance and hospital coverage. I've taken care of everything, but they need your signature since the policy is under your name." Lily blinked, confused. Insurance? Yes, he said, his tone calm, persuasive. It'll protect the baby if anything happens. It's just paperwork, nothing complicated. She hesitated. Can I read it? Of course, he said quickly, opening the folder and turning to the last page. But it's mostly legal jargon, just sign here and here. His hand guided hers gently, like old times. Her heart softened. Maybe this really was his way of making things right. Her pen scratched the paper, 2 neat signatures. Daniel smiled faintly, closing the folder. Thank you, he said. You've done the right thing. He kissed her forehead, his lips cold. Rest now, I'll handle the rest. When he left, Lily leaned back, exhausted but oddly hopeful. She told herself that maybe, just maybe, things could heal. Outside, Daniel strode through the parking lot, his mask slipping. He clutched the folder tightly, his grin turning cruel. It's done, he muttered into his phone. Sophie's laughter crackled through the speaker. You're free now, baby. She has no idea she just gave you everything. Back inside, Lily's nurse entered to check on her. He seemed kind, she said softly. Lily smiled weakly, whispering, maybe he still cares. But as the nurse left, a gust of wind flipped open one of the unsigned copies Daniel had left behind, and at the top the words glared in bold letters, transfer of ownership and assets. Lily's heart froze. The betrayal wasn't over. It had just deepened. The world felt still when Lily woke again, but something inside her had changed. Her stomach felt strangely light, too light. Her body ached, her heart throbbed with panic. The rhythmic beeping of machines was faster, louder, sharper. A nurse rushed to her side. Mrs. Moore, please stay calm, the nurse said urgently, checking the monitors. What's happening? Lily gasped, gripping her blanket. Where's my baby? I can't feel him move. The nurse didn't answer right away. She pressed the emergency button, and within seconds 2 doctors burst through the door. They worked quickly, voices low, movements fast. Ethan appeared moments later, his face tense. Lily, he said, taking her hand, you need to breathe. We're going to do everything we can. Her tears blurred his face. Please, save my baby. Please, Ethan. But his eyes told her the truth before his words could. Hours later, when the room was quiet again, Ethan sat beside her bed, his shoulders heavy with sorrow. I'm sorry, he said softly. The baby didn't make it. There was too much stress, too much trauma. His heart stopped during the night. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her breath caught in her throat. She felt her soul tear apart. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, that's not true. He was fine. I felt him. He kicked. Ethan's eyes glistened. I wish I could say otherwise. We tried everything. Lily turned her face to the wall, sobs ripping through her chest. Her hands clutched the sheets, searching for something to hold on to, but there was nothing. Just emptiness. Just silence. Through her tears, a faint memory surfaced. The sound of Daniel's voice at the party, cold and cutting. You always ruin everything. The words now felt prophetic. He had ruined everything. Even this. Hours passed and the nurses came and went, whispering softly. One of them offered to let her see the baby. She couldn't. Not yet. She wasn't ready to say goodbye to a life that never got to begin. When night fell, Ethan returned. He didn't speak at first. He just sat beside her, quiet, respectful. Finally, she whispered, he didn't even call, did he? Ethan looked at her sadly. No. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Of course not. He's probably with her right now, celebrating even. Ethan frowned. You shouldn't talk like that. Why not? She snapped suddenly, her grief turning sharp. He took everything from me, my dignity, my career, my baby, and I still thought maybe he loved me. He said nothing, letting her cry until her voice broke into silence again. When she finally looked at him, her face was pale, but her eyes burned with something new, something fierce. I'm done being his victim, she whispered. He killed my child. He'll never touch me again. Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. Then let me help you, Lily. You don't have to face him alone. She took a shaky breath. Help me disappear, Ethan. I can't stay here. Not anymore. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Outside, the night swallowed the hospital in silence, while inside, a broken mother made the quiet decision that would change everything. The hospital was silent except for the distant hum of machines and the soft rhythm of rain tapping against the windows. It was nearly midnight when Lily slowly sat up, her body weak, her heart hollow. The painkillers dulled her body but not her grief. Her baby was gone. The child she had prayed for, sung to, protected through every cruel word, gone without ever crying once. She looked toward the small bassinet by the corner, empty now. The nurse had gently told her earlier that the hospital would handle the arrangements, but Lily had barely heard the words. Her mind was somewhere else, thinking of Daniel's face, cold and careless, of the documents he made her sign, and of the cruel laughter of Sophie echoing in her head. A knock startled her. The door opened quietly, and Ethan stepped in, wearing a dark jacket instead of his white coat. His expression was firm, different from the soft calm she had seen before. "Lily," he whispered, "we can't wait any longer. He'll come back when he realizes you know what those papers were. We need to get you out of here." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean? Leave? I have nowhere to go." "You can't stay," Ethan said. "Daniel's lawyer has already requested your transfer. They're planning to move you to a private facility under his supervision. If that happens, you'll disappear." Her blood ran cold. "He wouldn't." "He would," Ethan interrupted gently, "and he's already done worse." Lily's hands trembled as she pushed the blanket aside. "I'm not strong enough to run. I'll help you," he said simply, "but you have to trust me." He handed her a long gray coat and a pair of soft shoes. "The back exit is clear. My car's waiting." Her heart pounded as she stood, her legs shaking under her weight. She glanced once more at the empty bassinet, tears blurring her vision. "Goodbye, my baby," she whispered. "I'll make him pay for everything." Ethan gently took her arm and guided her through the dark corridor. They moved silently, passing sleeping patients in dimly lit halls. Every sound, the creak of a door, the echo of a footstep, made her heart leap. When they reached the back door, Ethan opened it, and cold rain rushed in. The night air hit her face, sharp and cleansing. It felt like the first breath of freedom. They hurried to his car, headlights off, and drove into the darkness. For a long time, neither spoke. The wipers moved back and forth in slow rhythm, slicing the rain. Finally, Lily whispered, "Where are we going?" "A coastal town a few hours from here," Ethan replied. "Quiet, safe, no one will find you there." She leaned her head against the window, watching city lights fade into distance. "Why are you helping me?" Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." The rain grew heavier, but Lily didn't care. For the first time in months, she wasn't surrounded by fear, only the uncertain promise of freedom. As the city disappeared behind them, Lily didn't yet know this escape would mark the rebirth of a woman the world had buried. But she was about to find out. The sea stretched endlessly before her, waves rolling in with a steady rhythm that felt like breathing. Lily stood by the window of a small coastal cabin, wrapped in a wool blanket Ethan had brought her. It had been 3 weeks since they escaped the city. 3 weeks since she buried her baby in a quiet ceremony with no name, no headstone, just a small white flower drifting on the ocean tide. Every morning she woke before dawn, listening to the sound of waves. At first it felt like punishment, too peaceful for a world that had taken everything from her. But slowly, day by day, the sound began to soothe her. The storm inside her chest started to fade. Ethan visited daily, bringing groceries and medication. He never asked about the past, never pried. He simply showed up with calm eyes and steady hands. "You're healing," he told her one morning. "Not just your body, but your soul. Don't rush it." She smiled faintly. "I feel like a ghost sometimes." He nodded. "Maybe, but ghosts don't rebuild themselves. You are." Those words lingered long after he left. That afternoon, Lily opened an old sketchbook she had packed in a hurry before fleeing the hospital. The pages smelled faintly of home. Her hands trembled as she flipped through drawings, designs she once dreamed of showing on runways, dresses full of hope, color, and life. Then, in the last blank page, she drew something new, a white dress with wings. When Ethan returned later, she showed it to him shyly. "It's called Rebirth," she said. He studied the sketch. "It's beautiful. You should make it." Lily laughed softly. "I don't even have fabric or tools." "I'll find them," he said simply. "If this brings you back to life, I'll find anything you need." True to his word, the next day he arrived with bolts of fabric, threads, and an old sewing machine. "A friend owed me a favor," he said with a grin. For the first time in months, Lily sat at a sewing table. The hum of the machine filled the little cabin. Her hands moved slowly at first, then faster, steadier, remembering what they had once known. Each stitch felt like stitching herself back together. Days passed, and the white dress took shape. When she finally held it up to the light, she felt something she hadn't felt in so long: pride. Not as a wife, not as a victim, but as herself. Ethan watched her quietly. "You're stronger than he ever believed." She looked out toward the horizon, her eyes fierce. "He tried to destroy me, but he only built the woman who'll stand against him." Ethan smiled, knowing this was the moment she had truly returned. And as the sun dipped below the water, the woman Daniel once broke was gone, replaced by someone unshakable, someone the world would soon know again as Lily Moore, the designer reborn from her own ashes. The glass walls of Daniel's office reflected the cold light of dawn, revealing a man unraveling. His once perfect suit hung loosely on his frame. His tie was crooked, his eyes bloodshot. The empire he had built, his pride, his proof of power, was beginning to crack. He sat behind his mahogany desk, surrounded by silence, except for the occasional ping of his phone. Each notification brought bad news. Another investor pulling out, another contract canceled. The charity gala scandal had spread farther than he imagined. Overnight, his public image transformed from visionary entrepreneur to arrogant abuser. He poured whiskey into a glass and took a deep drink. The bitter burn barely cut through the panic inside him. "How could this happen?" he muttered, staring at the headlines on his screen. "Businessman under fire after humiliating wife in public." Beneath it, a blurred photo showed Lily collapsing in her blood-stained dress. He slammed the laptop shut, anger boiling. "She's the reason for this mess," he growled. "If she had just stayed quiet." The door opened suddenly. Sophie stepped in, looking flawless as always, her perfume filling the air. "You need to calm down," she said smoothly. "Calm down?" Daniel snapped. "We're losing everything. Do you even know how much damage control costs right now?" Sophie crossed her arms, unfazed. "Then fix it. You're Daniel Moore. You always fix things." He glared at her. "You don't understand. She still owns half of this company. If she decides to go public." "She won't," Sophie interrupted sharply. "She's weak. She ran away instead of fighting back. That's what women like her do. She's probably hiding in some cheap apartment crying over her dead baby." Daniel froze, his jaw tightening. "How do you know about that?" Sophie's lips curved slightly. "I have friends at the hospital. Word travels fast." He turned away, his reflection in the glass looking hollow. "You think this is funny?" "My child died." Sophie shrugged. "Don't act like you cared. You wanted her gone long before that." Her words hit him harder than he expected. For the first time, he couldn't respond. Maybe because deep down she was right. Somewhere along the way, his ambition had devoured the man he used to be. Sophie moved closer, resting her hands on his shoulders. "Listen, baby," she whispered. "Once we secure those contracts under your name, no one will remember her. You'll rebuild, and I'll be right beside you." Daniel looked at her, but something in her tone made his stomach twist. It wasn't love, it was hunger. He stood abruptly, brushing her hands off. "Just leave me alone. I need to think." Sophie smiled faintly, hiding her irritation. "Fine. But remember, I'm the only one still on your side." When she left, Daniel sank back into his chair, the city lights flickering outside like dying stars. For the first time, fear replaced arrogance. He opened his safe, pulling out Lily's signed documents, his supposed victory. But as he stared at her signature, his phone buzzed with a new email from the finance department. Unauthorized withdrawal detected from company accounts. Daniel's heart pounded. What the hell? He didn't know it yet, but the woman he thought was gone was already reclaiming her power, and his downfall had just begun. Sophie leaned against the glass balcony of Daniel's penthouse, the night wind brushing through her hair. Below her, the city pulsed with lights and noise, but she felt nothing. Her phone buzzed constantly. News alerts, messages from gossip pages, calls from investors who now wanted answers. The scandal that had humiliated Lily was slowly starting to poison Daniel's empire. She smirked, sipping champagne. Chaos was exactly what she wanted. Inside, Daniel paced like a caged animal. "Everything's falling apart," he shouted, throwing a stack of papers across the room. "Investors are pulling out. Reporters are digging into my finances. Do you have any idea what this means?" Sophie turned, her expression calm. "It means you underestimated the damage, and maybe you overestimated yourself." Daniel stopped, glaring at her. "What's that supposed to mean?" She smiled sweetly. "You used to be powerful, charming, unstoppable, But now, you're a man begging for respect, the great Daniel Moore destroyed by one little scandal. Careful, he warned, his voice low. Or what? She teased, stepping closer. You'll scream at me too? Make me take off my coat in front of your guests? His jaw clenched. Don't push me, Sophie. She laughed, but her eyes stayed cold. I'm not the one losing everything, Daniel. Maybe you should have been smarter with your money. He narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? She tilted her head. Let's just say some of your funds have been relocated. After all, I needed insurance. You're too unstable to rely on. Daniel's face drained of color. You stole from me, Sophie shrugged. Not stole, secured. You can call it self-protection. You think I'd let myself sink with your ship? He lunged toward her, grabbing her wrist. You little snake. She didn't flinch. Instead, she looked him dead in the eye. Let go, Daniel, or I'll release the recordings. He froze. What recordings? The ones from that night, she said calmly, freeing her wrist. Every word, every insult, every humiliation you threw at your pregnant wife. Sal, the world would love to hear the real Daniel Moore, don't you think? Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, Sophie said, stepping back with a smirk. Unless you do exactly what I say. I want access to your private accounts. I want full control of your upcoming contracts. In exchange, I'll make sure the world forgets that video exists. For the first time, Daniel realized he wasn't in control. Sophie wasn't his toy. She was the predator, and he had walked right into her trap. He turned away, breathing heavily. You'll regret this. Sophie picked up her glass, unbothered. No, darling, you will. I always knew you were dangerous, but not smart. That's your flaw. Daniel didn't respond. He just stared out the window, the city lights blurring before his eyes. Everything he'd built, his company, his image, his pride, was slipping through his fingers. And somewhere far from that glittering tower, Lily sat in a quiet room, her sewing machine humming softly. She didn't know it yet, but her enemies were devouring each other. And when they finished tearing themselves apart, she would rise, not as their victim, but as the one who would bury them both. The morning sun spread across the small coastal town, bathing the cottage in soft gold. Inside, the rhythmic hum of Lily's sewing machine filled the air. She worked quietly, her fingers gliding over the white silk she had chosen for her new collection. The dress before her shimmered like dawn, pure, strong, reborn. It wasn't just fabric, it was a promise. Ethan walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You've been up since 5, he said gently. You should rest. I can't, Lily replied, her voice calm but determined. When I sew, I stop thinking. When I stop thinking, the pain catches up. He set the cups down and sat opposite her. You've been avoiding something, he said carefully. Something about Daniel. Her hands paused. The needle froze mid-stitch. I don't want to talk about him. Lily, Ethan said softly, if you ever want to be free, you need to face what he did. Not just to you, but to your future. She looked at him, her eyes full of exhaustion. He made me sign papers in the hospital. I thought they were for insurance. But they weren't, were they? Ethan hesitated, then pulled out a folder from his bag. I've been investigating, he said. Your signature appears on several company documents. Transfer of ownership, liquidation authority, and an authorization for asset withdrawal. He stole everything under your name. Her breath caught. So it's true, she whispered. He took everything. There's more, Ethan continued. He didn't act alone. Sophie was the one who filed the paperwork. She helped him forge legal documents. They're both guilty. Lily's hands trembled as she took the folder. Inside were printed bank statements, contracts, and copies of her own signature, mocking her. Her name was everywhere, stripped of power, turned into a weapon against her. How did you get these? She asked, her voice shaking. I know someone at the registry office, he admitted. I had a feeling Daniel wasn't finished hurting you. I wanted to be ready. Lily closed the folder and sat in silence. The sound of waves outside mingled with her slow, steady breathing. Anger began to stir deep inside her. Not wild or desperate, but cold, focused. He took my money, she said finally. He took my name, my child, my dignity. I can't let him take my peace too. Ethan leaned forward. What are you going to do? Lily looked up, her eyes sharp as glass, employing, take back what's mine. Ethan hesitated. That means going back to the city. Everyone there remembers what happened. They'll talk. Let them, she said firmly. I hid long enough. I want him to see me standing again. I want him to know I'm not broken. Ethan's expression softened. Then I'll stand with you. She smiled faintly, the first real smile in months. Thank you, Ethan, but this fight, it started with me. It has to end with me. Outside, the sea roared as if answering her vow. The woman Daniel thought he'd erased was coming back, and this time she was ready to reclaim her name, her power, and her justice. The city skyline glimmered in the distance as the car crossed the bridge. Lily hadn't seen it in months. The sight of those glass towers made her chest tighten, a mix of fear and determination. Every streetlight, every building, carried a memory she'd once buried. This was the city where she had loved, lost, and been humiliated. Now it would be the place where she rose again. Ethan glanced at her from the driver's seat. You don't have to do this alone, he said quietly. I do, Lily replied. I let him control me for too long. It's time I look him in the eye. They pulled into the underground parking lot of a sleek building, her old company's headquarters. The last time she had been here, she was Daniel's obedient wife, waiting for him to finish meetings. Now, she was walking back as the woman he betrayed, ready to face him not as a victim, but as the rightful owner. She stepped out of the car, dressed in a fitted black dress she had designed herself, simple, elegant, powerful. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her makeup soft but deliberate. She looked calm, but inside her heart pounded like thunder. Ethan handed her a small flash drive. Everything's on here, proof of the forgery, Sophie's involvement, the bank transfers. If he denies anything, you'll have evidence. Lily took it, her fingers steady. Thank you, she said. You've done enough. He hesitated. I'll be nearby, just in case. She smiled faintly. I know. Inside, the building buzzed with activity. Employees glanced up as she entered, whispers spreading like wildfire. Is that Mrs. Moore? I thought she disappeared. She looks different. Lily ignored them and walked straight to the top floor. The secretary froze when she saw her. Mrs. Moore, Mr. Daniel is in a meeting. Lily's voice was calm, but her tone carried steel. Tell him his wife is here. Within minutes, Daniel appeared in the hallway, his face pale. Lily? He breathed. You're alive? I was never dead, she said coolly. Just gone. He stepped closer, trying to sound gentle. You shouldn't be here. You need rest. I can take care of everything. I'm sure you can, she replied. That's what you told me when you stole everything that belonged to me. His expression hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, but I do. She held up the flash drive. You forged my signature, transferred assets under my name, and let your mistress file the documents. You thought I wouldn't find out. Daniel's jaw tightened. You can't prove it. Lily smirked. You always underestimated me, Daniel. That's your mistake. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt electric, tense, dangerous. Then she turned to leave. I'm not here for revenge, she said. Not yet. I just wanted you to see the woman you tried to destroy is still standing. Daniel's voice followed her, sharp with panic. Lily, don't do this. She looked back, her eyes cold and steady. Oh, I'm already doing it. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Daniel's empire trembled for the first time. Not from scandal, but from the return of the woman he thought he had buried forever. The next morning, the city woke up to chaos. Social media exploded with a single headline: Businessman Daniel Moore exposed for fraud and abuse. A video was attached, a high-quality recording of the night Daniel humiliated Lily at the charity gala. Every cruel word, every moment of her tears was there for the world to see. The video had been uploaded anonymously, but it spread like wildfire. Within hours, news outlets picked it up. Television anchors debated it. Hashtags trended. The man once praised as a self-made success story had become the face of cruelty and greed. In his penthouse, Daniel slammed his phone onto the table, his breathing ragged. Who did this? He shouted, pacing like a man trapped in a burning room. Who recorded that night? Across the room, Sophie lounged on the couch, scrolling through her tablet, her red lips curved into a smirk. I told you that night would come back to haunt you, he turned sharply. You. It was you. She didn't deny it. Relax, Daniel. I didn't upload it. Not directly, but I might have. Passed it along to someone who did. You ruined me, he shouted. Sophie stood, her eyes cold and glittering. No, darling, you ruined yourself. I just gave the world a front row seat. He lunged toward her, fury in his eyes, but she didn't flinch. Don't, she warned. You'll only make it worse. I have more recordings, photos, bank transfers, everything. Try to hurt me and I'll bury you. Daniel froze. Why? He hissed. After everything I gave you. Because you're finished, she said simply, and I don't go down with sinking ships. She grabbed her purse and walked out, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a final goodbye. Daniel sank onto the couch, his hands gripping his hair. His phone buzzed again, calls from lawyers, reporters, and his board members. One text from his financial advisor made his stomach drop. Lily Moore's name is trending. People are calling her a hero. He threw the phone aside, rage burning in his chest. Lily, he muttered. She's behind this. But miles away in a modest office, Lily sat beside Ethan, watching the same video on a laptop. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the surge of emotion that came with seeing her past so raw and public. The world was finally seeing what she had endured. Ethan glanced at her. You didn't leak it? She shook her head slowly. No, but whoever did gave me back my voice. Then use it, Ethan said quietly. The world believes you now. Lily took a deep breath. I will. But first, I need to make sure he can't recover from this. Ethan looked at her, seeing a calm fire in her eyes. You already started a storm, Lily. Just be careful not to get caught in it. She met his gaze steadily. The storm's not what scares me anymore. Silence does. And as the world turned against Daniel Moore, the woman he once called weak was becoming the most powerful force in his life. His reckoning? Rain poured over the city that night, blurring the neon lights into rivers of color. Sophie gripped the steering wheel of her sleek black car, her phone buzzing non-stop beside her. Every call, every message carried the same tone. Panic. The world that once adored her perfect image was turning its back. She had thought releasing the video would give her leverage, power, control over Daniel. Instead, it had unleashed chaos she couldn't contain. Investors she once charmed were cutting ties, brands removing her from campaigns, and the whispers that followed her everywhere now carried a different sound: disgust. She pulled into the parking garage of Daniel's penthouse, the tires screeching. Inside, she found him sitting in the dark, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table. The air reeked of alcohol and anger. You happy now? He growled without looking up. You wanted to destroy me. Well, congratulations. Sophie threw her purse down. Don't act like the victim. You made this mess. You used me, lied to me, and thought I'd sit there smiling while you crawled back to her? Daniel looked up, his eyes red. You recorded me. You ruined everything. Do you have any idea what I've lost because of you? She laughed bitterly. What you lost? You took everything from that woman, Daniel. Maybe this is just karma finally catching up. He stood, staggering slightly. Don't talk to me about karma. You're no saint. No, she said coldly, but at least I never pretended to be. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, two predators who'd finally realized they were the prey. Sophie picked up her purse and turned toward the door. I'm done, Daniel. I'm leaving the country before this gets worse. You're not going anywhere, he snapped, blocking her path. Move, she warned. He grabbed her wrist. Where are the rest of the recordings? The emails? I know you kept copies. Let go, she hissed, struggling. You're drunk. He tightened his grip. Tell me where they are. In one violent motion, she shoved him back. You think you can threaten me again? Do it, Daniel. Kit me. Show the world what kind of man you really are. For a second, he looked ready to strike, but then his balance slipped. His glass fell, shattering across the floor. He stumbled, catching himself on the table. Get out, he growled. Sophie snatched her car keys and stormed out. The elevator doors closed, and her heart raced. She had planned her escape already. A suitcase in the trunk, cash, a flight booked under a fake name. All she had to do was make it to the airport. But outside, the rain was heavier now, blinding her as she sped through the streets. Her phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. Running won't save you. You'll pay for what you did. Her eyes darted to the rearview mirror. Headlights followed her closely, too close. She pressed harder on the gas, but the wet road betrayed her. Tires screeched, the world spun. And then, everything went black. When the sirens wailed minutes later, the city learned that Sophie, the beautiful mistress who once smiled at another woman's pain, would never smile again. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall windows of the conference hall, casting a golden glow across rows of journalists, entrepreneurs, and investors. It was the opening day of the National Business Innovation Summit, a grand event meant to honor the country's most successful rising brands. Among the banners and glimmering lights was one name that had caught everyone's attention: Lillian Designs. Behind that name stood Lily Moore. She stood backstage, her heartbeat steady despite the murmur of hundreds of people waiting. Her black dress hugged her frame perfectly, elegant, poised, unshakable. The once broken woman who had fled the city was gone. In her place stood a visionary designer whose comeback story had taken the fashion world by storm. Ethan approached, adjusting her microphone. "Are you ready?" She gave him a calm smile. "I've been ready since the night I fell." He nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "You know Daniel's here, right?" She paused, her expression unreadable. "I expected he would be. This is his playground, the world of money, fame, and lies. But today, it's my stage." The host's voice echoed through the hall. "Please welcome the founder and creative director of Lillian Designs, Mrs. Lily Moore." Applause erupted as she stepped into the spotlight. Cameras flashed. She walked with the grace of someone who had walked through fire and survived it. Her voice was calm, yet carried the weight of truth. 2 years ago, she began, "I lost everything: my company, my home, my family, even my child. The world saw me fall, and they called it weakness. But sometimes, falling is the only way to see who truly stands beside you." The audience was silent, captivated. "Pain has a way of breaking illusions," she continued. "It took losing everything for me to remember who I was. And today, Lillian Designs isn't just a brand. It's a story of rebirth." People clapped again, but from the back of the room, a shadow stirred. Daniel sat among the crowd, his face pale, his eyes locked on her. He hadn't expected this. The wife he had destroyed was standing above him, radiant, respected, untouchable. Next to him, reporters whispered, cameras turning toward him. The grand ballroom glimmered again. Different night, same chandeliers, same city that once witnessed her humiliation. But this time, Lily was not the broken woman trembling under the lights. She was the honored guest, the keynote speaker at the Businesswomen's Empowerment Gala. The room buzzed with admiration, cameras flashing as she entered in a flowing silver gown of her own design, her name, Lillian Designs, glittering on every banner. She paused by the entrance, steadying her breath. It had been exactly 1 year since that night. 1 year since Daniel tore her pride apart. Tonight, she would reclaim it all. Ethan stood nearby, adjusting his tie. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked softly. Lily smiled, her eyes calm. "I've been ready since the moment I stopped being afraid of him." The announcer's voice echoed across the hall. "Please welcome our special guest, designer and philanthropist, Mrs. Lily Moore." Applause thundered as she walked toward the stage, her heels clicking in rhythm with her heartbeat. But before she reached the microphone, a familiar figure appeared near the back of the hall. Daniel. He looked older, gaunter, his once perfect suit wrinkled, his face drawn. Security had tried to stop him at the door, but he insisted on entering, claiming he only wanted to apologize. The whisper spread fast. "That's him. The husband. The one from the video." Daniel's voice trembled as he called out, "Lily." The crowd turned. Cameras lifted instantly. Lily stopped mid-step, the room thick with tension. Ethan moved closer, but she raised a hand. She wanted to handle this herself. Daniel walked forward, his voice breaking. "Please let me speak. I lost everything. My company, my home, my dignity. I deserve it, I know that, but I can't live without saying I'm sorry." Lily looked at him, her face unreadable. "You're not sorry for what you did," she said quietly. "You're sorry for what it cost you." He fell to his knees. "You have every right to hate me, but please, forgive me. Don't let me die knowing I destroyed you." For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Every camera in the room focused on her, waiting for her reaction. Then Lily took the microphone. Her voice was calm but powerful. "A year ago, this man humiliated me in front of all of you. He made me believe I was nothing, but I stand here tonight to prove that no woman's worth depends on the cruelty of others." Applause erupted. Daniel bowed his head, tears falling freely. She looked at him one last time. "I forgive you, Daniel," she said softly, "but forgiveness is not forgetting. You will live with what you did, and I will live free of it." The room rose in a standing ovation as Daniel was quietly escorted out by security. Lily stood tall, the lights reflecting off her gown like armor. Ethan joined her on stage, pride shining in his eyes. and as the applause roared around her, Lily realized she hadn't just survived her past, she had rewritten it. The woman once forced to undress her dignity was now dressed in her own victory. The morning after the gala, the world couldn't stop talking about Lily Moore. Newspapers praised her speech as a moment of poetic justice. Headlines read, "From humiliation to empowerment, the woman who rose from the ashes." Social media overflowed with her photos, her quotes, her strength. But behind the flashing lights and applause, Lily knew one final chapter remained unfinished. Daniel's crimes still lived in hidden files and secret accounts. In her private office that morning, she sat across from Ethan, her trusted ally and silent guardian. The flash drive he'd given her months ago now lay on the table between them. "It's time," Lily said, her voice calm but resolute. "The public deserves to know everything, every forgery, every stolen cent, not for revenge, for truth." Ethan nodded. "I already contacted the authorities. They'll be here soon. Once the evidence is verified, Daniel won't escape this time." Lily sighed softly. "He destroyed my life, Ethan, but if I destroy his in return, how am I any different?" Ethan met her eyes. "You're not destroying him. You're exposing him. There's a difference." Before she could answer, a knock came at the door. Two government investigators entered, carrying files and serious expressions. "Mrs. Moore?" One of them said, "Thank you for cooperating. We've reviewed preliminary data, but we need confirmation from your end to move forward." Lily handed them the flash drive. "Everything you need is there. Forged signatures, financial transfers, and records of his offshore accounts. He used my name to steal millions." The agents exchanged a look. "And your husband's current location?" Ethan responded, "He's been staying at a rental property downtown, but he won't leave quietly." One investigator nodded, "We'll issue a warrant by tomorrow morning." As they left, Lily sank into her chair, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over her. "It's almost over," she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "It's the beginning, not the end." That evening, the news broke again. Daniel Moore under federal investigation for fraud, forgery, and domestic abuse. Cameras surrounded his apartment building as officers led him away in handcuffs. He looked thinner, defeated, the arrogance gone from his eyes. Reporters shouted questions, flashes blinded him, and for once he had no words. Lily watched the broadcast from her office, emotion tightening her throat. "I thought I'd feel happy," she murmured, "but I just feel free." Ethan turned off the TV. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it's just peace. Lily smiled weakly. Peace, that's enough. Her phone buzzed with endless messages. Journalists, brands, women thanking her for her courage. But one message stood out, an anonymous text that read, "You gave us all strength. You reminded us we're not alone." She stared at it for a long time, tears forming quietly. For the first time in years, her story no longer belonged to pain, it belonged to purpose. As the city lights shimmered below her office window, Lily realized she had not only reclaimed her life, but had become the voice for countless women still trapped in silence. And that, she knew, was her truest victory. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean, almost reborn. Lily stood on the balcony of her penthouse, her own penthouse now, watching the streets below. It had taken nearly 2 years to reach this peace. 2 years of pain, loss, and justice. Daniel was in prison awaiting trial. His company, once built on lies and greed, was being dismantled piece by piece. And Lily, the woman he thought would never rise again, had become a symbol of strength for millions. Yet, that morning, as the golden sunlight kissed the skyline, she didn't feel like a hero. She just felt human, fragile but alive. Ethan entered quietly, carrying 2 mugs of tea. "You haven't eaten," he said gently. She smiled, taking the cup. "You sound like my doctor again." "I'm always your doctor," he teased lightly, sitting beside her. "But more importantly, I'm your friend." They sat in silence for a moment, the city humming softly below. "Do you ever think about him?" Ethan asked finally. Lily didn't answer right away. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Not out of love. Just remembering who I used to be when I was with him. That woman was so desperate to be loved that she forgot who she was." Ethan nodded. "That woman's gone." "Yes," she said quietly. "She died the day my baby did. But the woman who replaced her, she's stronger. She doesn't beg to be seen anymore." He looked at her with quiet admiration. "You've done something remarkable, Lily. You've turned your pain into power." She smiled faintly. "Power doesn't heal, Ethan. but peace does. Her phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up, expecting another media request, but the message made her heart soften. It was from a young woman she had never met. Your story saved me. I left an abusive marriage today because of you. Thank you for showing me that surviving is possible. Lily's eyes filled with tears. That's why I keep going, she whispered. Not for revenge, for women like her. Ethan placed a comforting hand over hers. You've already done more good than you realize. She turned to him. What about you, Ethan? You've been saving me all this time. Don't you deserve something for yourself? He chuckled softly. Seeing you smile again is enough. Their eyes met, and for a moment, words weren't needed. It wasn't romance. It was something deeper. A quiet understanding born from shared strength and survival. Lily took a deep breath, the wind tugging gently at her hair. I want to start something new, she said suddenly. A foundation, for women who've lost everything, like I did. Safe houses, counseling, legal aid, a place where they can start again. Ethan smiled. I'll help you build it. Not for me, she said softly, looking out at the endless city. For them, for every woman still living in fear. And as the morning sun broke through the clouds, Lily Moore felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not victory, not pride, but healing. The scars remained, but they no longer defined her. They told her story, a story that was finally hers to write. A year later, the city once again spoke the name Lily Moore, but this time not with pity or scandal. Her new foundation, the Rising Women Project, had officially opened its doors. The event was held in a renovated art studio turned community center, its walls painted in soft shades of gold and cream. Everywhere Lily looked, there were women, some young, some older, all with eyes that carried both pain and hope. Cameras flashed as she arrived, but Lily no longer feared them. She had learned that the gaze of the world couldn't break her. It could only reflect her truth. Dressed in a pale ivory suit she designed herself, she moved through the crowd with quiet confidence. Ethan met her near the entrance, carrying a stack of brochures. Everything's set, he said. We have over 200 women registered for counseling and training. You did this, Lily. She smiled. We did this. You believed in me when no one else did. He shrugged modestly. I just gave you a hand. You did the rest. As the ceremony began, the room filled with applause. Lily stepped up to the podium, her heart pounding. Not from fear, but from gratitude. She looked out at the faces before her, women from all walks of life. Many of them had endured what she once did. Betrayal, humiliation, abuse. But tonight, they weren't victims, they were survivors. 2 years ago, Lily began, her voice steady. I lost everything I thought defined me. My marriage, my career, my child. I thought my life was over. But I was wrong. Pain doesn't end us, it shapes us. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. Each of you here tonight carries your own story of survival. And this place, the Rising Women Project, exists for that reason. To remind you that your story doesn't end with pain. It begins with healing. The audience erupted in applause. Some women wiped away tears. Others stood, clapping fiercely. Ethan watched from the corner, pride softening his usually calm expression. After the speech, Lily moved through the crowd, shaking hands and listening to stories. One woman, thin and trembling, clutched her hand and whispered, I saw your video. When he humiliated you, I saw myself. But when you stood up again, I saw who I could become. Lily squeezed her hand gently. Then promise me you'll never stop standing. Outside, as the event ended, she stepped into the golden evening light. The air was cool, filled with the scent of spring. She looked toward the sky, whispering softly, We made it, little one. Your short life gave me the strength to save others. Ethan joined her, his hands in his pockets. You think he's watching this? Lily smiled faintly. Maybe, but it doesn't matter anymore. My life isn't about him, it's about what came after. He nodded. So what's next? She turned toward the horizon, her eyes bright with quiet purpose. Growth, hope, more stories to rewrite. And as the sun set over the city that once broke her, Lily Moore stood tall, a woman no longer defined by pain, but by the light she brought into the world. A new dawn had truly begun. The sun dipped low over the skyline, painting the world in amber and rose. Lily stood by the window of her office, overlooking the courtyard of the Rising Women Project. Below her, laughter echoed, women talking, children playing, volunteers arranging supplies. It was peaceful, alive, everything she once thought she'd never have again. On her desk sat a letter, official and stamped. It was the final verdict from the court. Daniel Moore, sentenced to 15 years for fraud, forgery, and domestic abuse. She read it once more, not out of triumph, but closure. Ethan entered quietly, holding 2 cups of tea as always. "So it's done," he said, setting one beside her. Lily nodded slowly. "Yes, justice is never as loud as revenge, but it lasts longer." He smiled faintly. "You've come a long way, Lily. The world saw your strength, but I saw your courage before anyone else did." She turned toward him, warmth softening her eyes. "You were there when I couldn't even look at myself. You gave me space to rebuild." Ethan chuckled softly. "You did all the rebuilding. I just handed you the bricks." They both laughed quietly. For a moment, silence filled the room again, comfortable and whole. Outside, the golden light shimmered through the window, touching Lily's face like a blessing. She looked back at the verdict, tracing Daniel's name one last time. "I don't hate him anymore," she said finally. "He destroyed himself long before I fought back. I used to think forgiveness meant weakness, but now I know it means freedom." Ethan nodded. "Forgiving him doesn't erase what happened. It just means he can't own your story anymore." Lily smiled softly. "Exactly. My story belongs to me now." There was a knock at the door. A young woman entered nervously, clutching a folder. "Mrs. Moore, I just wanted to say thank you," she said shyly. "Because of your foundation, I found a place to live and a job. I'm starting over." Lily's eyes glistened. "That's the whole point. You don't need to start perfect, just start." The girl nodded, her face lighting with hope before she left. When the door closed, Lily whispered, "She reminds me of who I used to be." Ethan leaned against the window frame. "Then you've come full circle." Lily walked toward the balcony, pushing open the glass doors. The breeze carried the scent of rain and jasmine. "Sometimes I still hear it," she said quietly. "That night, the laughter, the humiliation, but it doesn't haunt me anymore. It reminds me how far I've come." Ethan joined her, their shoulders brushing slightly. "And where you're going next?" She looked out at the horizon. "Forward, always forward." As the sun sank completely, the city lights flickered alive beneath them. Lily felt her heart beat steadily, peacefully. No fear, no anger, just life. She turned to Ethan, smiling. "You once said healing isn't loud. You were right. It's quiet, but it's the most powerful sound in the world." He raised his cup gently. "To new beginnings." Lily lifted hers. "To every woman who finds her voice again." And as the night settled over the city, Lily Moore, the woman once broken, humiliated, and silenced, stood radiant in her own light. She had lost everything, only to discover the one thing no one could ever take from her again: herself. So that's how the story ends. My dear friends, you're still here with me, right? If you've stayed until this moment, maybe something in Lily's journey touched your heart in a quiet way. Her pain, her fall, and her rise remind us of one powerful truth. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can always choose how we rise from it. The Stoics said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Every wound, every heartbreak can become a doorway to strength if we dare to face it. Like Lily, we all have moments when the world breaks us, but healing begins when we stop letting the past own our story. So take a deep breath, stand tall, and remember, peace is power. If this story moved you even a little, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's keep walking together toward courage and healing.